A selection of readings from the Gospel of John. Then Pilate entered the headquarters again, summoned Jesus and asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus answered, "Do you ask this on your own, or did others tell you about me?" Pilate replied, "I am not a Jew, am I? Your own nation and the chief priests have handed you over to me. What have you done?" Jesus answered, "My kingdom is not from this world. If my kingdom were from this world, my followers would be fighting to keep me from being handed over to the Jews. But as it is, my kingdom is not from here." Pilate asked him, "So you are a king?" And Jesus answered, "You say that I am a king. For this I was born, and for this I came into the world, to testify to the truth. Everyone who belongs to the truth listens to my voice." Pilate asked him, "What is truth?" After he had said this, he went out to the Jews again and told them, "I find no case against him." Since it was the day of preparation, the Jews did not want the bodies left on the cross during the Sabbath, especially because that Sabbath was a day of great solemnity. So they asked Pilate to have the legs of the crucified men broken and the bodies removed. Then the soldiers came and broke the legs of the first and of the other who had been crucified with him. But when they came to Jesus and saw that he was already dead, they did not break his legs. Instead, one of the soldiers pierced his side with a spear, and at once blood and water came out. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Who could have predicted that the Jesus story would begin with an immaculate conception of light and appear to conclude with a humiliating death? Who could have predicted that the same man who started his ministry by turning water into wine at a raucous wedding party in Cana would appear to conclude his ministry by invoking his right to remain silent? In verse 37 of John's passage, or John's Passion, Pilate asks Jesus if he is a king, and Jesus responds by saying effectively, "If you say so." These are the only words that he will offer in self-defense. Who could have predicted that God would valiantly enter this world in the person of Jesus Christ only to die in humiliation, silent, incapable, or unwilling to muster a defense? The one that entered the temple to turn over tables while shouting that his house would be one of prayer can't find his voice to demand the loud shouts from the vigilante mob be tabled until he's guaranteed a fair trial. What power is there to be found in saying nothing? In saying nothing exactly when you have the attention of the only person that can save your life. The governor, Pilate, asked him if he was a king, if it was him, not Caesar, not the empire that should be feared. And in that moment, he says nothing of substance. He does not save himself by the powers of persuasion. He will not avoid the punishment of death that is a consequence of treasonous rabble-rousing. But we conveniently reinterpret his silence as a take-it-or-leave-it detail, a non-essential bit of noise that can be ignored. What follows then is a remembrance of this day, Good Friday, a remembrance of Good Friday that claims our Lord's insistent silence was just necessary to expedite the inevitable death that we need as a substitute for our own. His silence before Pilate, though, was the beginning of his waiting. His waiting between life and death, and then life again. And so, the time is noon. The sun is high. It is another day in Jerusalem. The lynching spot could have been a high point in the city, close enough that people coming and going would be sure to see the lynching tree and the men hanging from it. His body was by now another object colonized by the Romans, stolen by the empire to support the propaganda machine that principalities and powers need to keep the people quiet. Fear can be transmitted through policy and pixels and on paper, but it is most efficiently communicated through the desecration of bodies. The body, as a desecrated sacrament, is guaranteed to go viral. Just last night, the communion table was set on the same spot I'm now standing as the church gathered and we worshiped together and recalled Jesus' Last Supper with his closest followers. Last night, here on this spot, we recalled that when Jesus broke bread, he said, "This is my body, broken for you. Take and eat." Today, we hear of different plans for his body. The religious and political authorities said, "Take, eat." Fear of death is the food that we have prepared for you. Oh, he did nothing to deserve death, but none of that mattered because the evilness of the empire pays no mind to the law. Empire is incapable of fairness. Empire has never been known to stop upon learning that humans were made in God's image, not to be stolen or colonized or consumed. He did nothing to deserve the cross, but bear our sin of fearing death. It is another day in Jerusalem. The sun is up high, and there are bodies everywhere. Roman soldiers stand waiting for the lynching show to end so that they can return home to their families. And a crowd of nameless Jerusalemites is there for the spectacle. Some of the the people gathered are acquaintances of Jesus. And among this crowd of acquaintances, the women are distinguished. They are his family. And the gospel writer knows that for the body to become a sacrament, someone must be a witness when it is broken. The women refuse to go home. They won't look away. They can't defend their friend from the empire, but they can honor his body's innocence, his son of godness, his walked this earthness, his nothing to deserve deathness. They can dignify his life by standing there, bearing witness, holding tight, until the word became flesh in death, as it did in life. Their presence, their bodies, fill the silence he left behind at trial. Although he did not say much, someone heard him. And they were there on Friday as eyewitnesses to his death so that they could be credible evangelists on Sunday. They are us. On Sunday, someone will be certain to ask if the people that saw his empty tomb actually watched him die. But his death was never in question. After he gave up his spirit, some of the other witnesses remembered their religion all of a sudden. Oh, those crowds that urged Pilate to break his body now, request that his body be lowered from the cross before the Saturday Sabbath, what they called a day of solemnity. They didn't want the Sabbath to be desecrated by his broken body. I think that most of us intimately know the pain of the crucifixion. We have seen life come to an end, sometimes tragically and too soon. We've been in relationships that have died and are now in the tomb. We know what pain feels like, and we know about suffering in the fullness of God's time, not ours. Oh, new life will come, but on this day and then on the next. Those of us who stood there bearing witness to death will wait to make our somber journey to a tomb that should be closed. And it's there, between the specificity of now and the uncertainty of what will come, where we all live most of our days. All of us. All of us are waiting for something to change. We wait for pain and sorrow to pass. We wait for healing in relationships. And we wait for life to emerge out of the fallowness of pandemic time. And we wait for the beloved community to be gathered. We wait for a child to be born or a loved one to die. And we wait for a relationship that we can commit to. And we wait for a faith that can hold all of our questions about God at ease. And we wait for the wounds of this world to be healed. And we wait in between life and death and life. And we fill the silence with prayers of, holy,